All right, so now we're going to get into file-based routing, and this is the documentation here for Next.js routing if you want to check that out, and you don't have to, but you can use it as a supplement. So basically, we're using the app folder structure. There's two ways to do things. There's the older pages folder that you can use, or the newer app folder, which is what we're using. So app is basically the root for our routes, and then we can create subfolders that we want to pertain to specific routes. All right, so let's say I want to have a page or a component load when I go to slash properties, right? Right now, obviously, I get a 404 because that doesn't exist, but I don't have to install React Router. I don't have to write out my routes like you would with a single page application. All I have to do is go into my app folder and create a new folder called properties, or whatever I want that route to be. And then inside that folder, I'm going to create a file and I'm going to name it page.jsx, just like I did with the home page. And then let's create a component, and I'm going to call this properties page. So whenever I create a component page, I always end it with page. So we'll save that, and now you'll see that that component is actually loading when I go to slash properties. I didn't have to set up any routes or anything like that. So if you're coming from single page applications, you're really going to like this feature. It's one of the best features of SSR. Now, if you're using the older pages structure instead of the app folder, then you could create a file called properties.jsx. But I really like this because it makes it easy to have nested routes. So let's say we want to go to property/add, which is going to be an actual route in this application to add a property. So what we can do is in this properties folder, we can simply add a folder called add, and then in that add folder, create another page.jsx, and we'll create a component. We'll call it property, let's say property add page. Save that, and now you'll see that that's being loaded. So creating nested routes, creating these subfolders, very simple. Now there's going to be times where you're going to want dynamic routes, meaning property slash and then some kind of ID, right? And this, again, this will be something that we have in our application. So obviously we get a 404, but what we can do is go into the properties folder. Again, I like how it's structured like this because anything to do with slash properties is going to go in this folder. So we'll create a folder, and you don't want to just call it ID because that means the literal character's ID. What you want to do is use brackets and then put ID inside those brackets. That makes it dynamic. So now we'll create a page.jsx in there, and let's create a component. We'll call this one property page because that's going to be a single property. And there we go. So that works whether it's 1, 2, 3 or just 1. Any ID that I put in there is going to load this page. Now you might want a catch-all, and what that means is if I go to the ID and then slash, let's say, rooms or anything. So right now you'll see that that doesn't work because this brackets ID means that it has to just go to just slash ID. But if I want it to be a catch-all, meaning anything after ID that I put in should still load this page, then I could just rename this brackets ID to brackets ... ID. That makes it a catch-all, and now you can see that works. And even if I added on to this like slash beds, if I do that, it still loads that page or that component. Now we don't need this to be a catch-all in this situation, so I'm just going to change it back to just brackets, but I just wanted to show you that that is possible. You can see now this isn't working unless I go just directly to the ID without those other routes after it. Okay, now as far as linking to the routes, we can use the link component, which should be familiar to you if you've ever used React Router or Vue.js for that matter. So what we can do, let's go to the home page. I'm going to close this stuff up. So the home page is going to be an app and then the page.jsx. And what I'll do is just put an H1 in here. Let's say text 3XL. Remember, we can use Tailwind classes. We'll just say welcome. And then I'll put an A tag in here for now and just go to slash properties. And we'll say show properties, right? So if I go to the home page and we see show properties, I'll just make this a little bigger. If I click on that, it goes to the properties page, but it's doing a full reload, right? You can see the spinner here when I click on the link. So what we can do to make this a little more performant is use the link component. So I'm going to bring that in. Let's say import link from next/link. And then instead of the A tag, we're going to use the link component. And it's still href, the prop. It's not to like it is with React Router. So it's just going to be href. Save that, and now I can click it, and you'll see it's quicker. It doesn't have that reload up here. All right. Because remember, even though these are server-side components, they load on the server on the initial load, but then we can use all the, all the bells and whistles of a client-side component. In fact, in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can make components client-side. But let's just add on the properties page, kind of do the same thing so we can link back. And we'll get rid of this stuff after. These are kind of like just learning lessons or learning modules. We're not really building our project just yet. But let's go to the properties page here, and then I'll just go in this div, and we'll change that to properties, and then we'll change this to, let's say, go home. And of course we need to bring in the link component. So that's going to be from next/link. So now we should just be able to go back and forth. Or not. What did I do wrong here? Yeah, this should be just slash. All right, so that's how you want to link back and forth to different routes. Okay, so like I said, in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can create a client-side component, because right now all of these are being rendered from the server.